meeting
We,
of the tobacco.
we don't have quorum, so
Oh, yes.
we can just push the minutes back.
Uh, we want to welcome you to our last meeting of 2022 of the Tobacco Settlement Agreement Fund Oversight Committee. And as we begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize Senator Dennis Parrott. This will be his last meeting serving here as a member of our Senate, and I want you to know I have greatly appreciated working with you during my time here. And we're going to ask Senator Parrott to lead us in the prayer and the pledge, and then I'd like to ask him if he'd mind making a comment, either before we do that or afterwards. Yes. Let's go with prayer first, or whichever you feel comfortable with.
Prayer first. Lord, as we gather together to do the business of the Commonwealth, challenges, but a lot of good things do get done here. Pray. Dear Lord, thank you.
Do the pledge. I'll do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Senator, would you like to share a little about your experience here serving? Because you are greatly appreciated.
Have him turn on his mic.
And please turn your mic on.
You know, anybody that's been here, you know, there's good and bad, but it's still a wonderful arena, if you want to call it that, to get good legislation passed, and you know, legislation brings this brought forth to the legislators to vote on and discuss. There's been a lot of dialogue in all those meetings, and it's all, most of it's, not all of it, certainly, but it's healthy, and it's you know, that's what how government works. And I think here in Kentucky, I don't know about a lot of the other states. I've been to several other states, but I think we rank way up there, just like, you know, better as much as they do. And I'm proud to have been a part of this. But on the flip side, I'm glad I'm done. And my wife is a lot happier that I'm done, and the grandkids, and I'm certainly looking, you know, more forward to, you know, having more time with the grandkids, and can get a little more work done on the farm. So, but it's been a wonderful thing for our family. even our grandkids, they'll ask questions about legislative stuff. And that's the way to start them, and I'm proud of that too. But I certainly I appreciate this place.
Well, you're appreciated, and I want you to know I think everyone needs to remember this. We as a legislative body are only as good as those members that serve in this legislative body. And Senator Parrott, you are one of the fine ones that I've had the opportunity serving with. And you're greatly appreciated. And you have always been so open and welcoming to me during when we're in session. So you are appreciated greatly. And Senator Webb, would you like to add?
I would. We're not losing Dennis because we know where his farm is, and I pass by there all the time. So, but to have his knowledge of agriculture, of tobacco settlement dollars, and things he's done all of his life and made his living at, and the network that he's had and the experiences that he's had in the industry. To begin with, you just can't find that every day. And then to be losing that at a time when the challenges are so great with urban, rural, and federal and state and global ag issues, it pains me for our ag community to lose him, Mr. Chairman, in that light. But like I said, I know he's a phone call away and he's not going to stop being involved. But it's been an honor to serve with him, and I think he's my son's favorite legislator. And
He is.
So, but from our family to theirs, I understand the demands it is on the family, and how happy. I've talked to his wife a lot, and she seems a little lighter to deal with now. But Dennis, we love you, and our legislative family will miss you here.
Yeah. Thanks, Senator Webb.
Once again, thank you, Senator Parrott. You're
Appreciate it.
greatly appreciated. And I know you look forward to spending time with your family. I know I laugh myself. I think my wife is excited about me coming up here in January because she knows she's going to have a vacation from me for a period of time. And but I've always said our families are the ones who really pay the price for our service up here. Our job is, even though it's hard, their job at home is a lot harder when we're not there. So we greatly appreciate your service. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on. We like to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Senator Adams, Senator Parrott,
Here.
Senator Webb, Senator Westerfield, Representative Brown, Representative Kim King, Representative Pratt, Representative Reed,
Here.
Representative Roberts, Co-Chairman Senator Hornback, and Chairman Representative Dossett.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We do have a form, and the next part on our agenda will move toward approval of the minutes for our November meeting. Do I get a motion, please? And a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Minutes pass. Next, we'll move on. We're going to change our order of our normal business. We're going to ask Dr. Mark Evers if he will please come to the table. And we have Dr. Jason Chesney, who I believe is online. And they're going to speak to us about the utilization of tobacco settlement dollars for cancer research. And I ask you to make sure to hit your microphone, and
Yes,
both
sir.
of you introduce yourselves, please.
Yes, sir. So I'm Mark Evers. I'm a professor at University of Kentucky, and I'm also director of our Markey Cancer Center there. Thank you.
One moment, please. We're trying to get Dr. Chesney online. You can begin if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I really want to thank everybody for having me here. It's always a great honor to come and talk about the Markey Cancer Center, and I really appreciate all the support that this committee and the legislature has given to us. I will try to be fairly brief. Our mission at the Markey Cancer Center is to reduce the cancer burden with a focus on Kentucky and its most vulnerable populations through research, prevention, treatment, education, and community engagement. I don't need to tell this audience about Kentucky challenges, but we do face a number of challenges here in Kentucky. One is poverty. About 17% of our population in Kentucky live in poverty. We have 45 counties of the 120 that are considered as persistent poverty, and those are predominantly in eastern Kentucky. Other significant challenges that we face include smoking, obesity, low education attainment, as well as cancer burden. So we've made a lot of strides, I think, over the last decade, but unfortunately our cancer burden is still severe. We're number one as a state in all cancer incidents. We're also number one in all cancer mortality, and as bad as that is in the state itself, it's even worse in our eastern part of our state, in eastern Appalachian Kentucky, where we have cancer rates that are some of the highest in the U.S. At the Markey Cancer Center, we have focused on several cancers that are very prevalent in our state and are also in the top 5, that we rank in the top 5 in either incidence and mortality. This includes lung, colorectal, head and neck, cervical, as well as melanoma. We also have a number of risk factors that we consider as our research priorities. Tobacco, obesity, as well as various viruses. HPV is human papillomavirus, can cause cervical cancer, and hepatitis C can cause liver cancer, as well as a number of environmental exposures. So I just want to briefly talk about some of the impact that the state funding has had on us, and a portion of the tobacco settlement funds went toward NCI designation to help us achieve that status, which we achieved in 2013. And I have to say, it's been an amazing journey since NCI designation with the number of patients that we've seen at the Markey Cancer Center and the people that we've been able to touch and treat. We've also been really proud of the fact that over the last 6 years, we've been ranked in the top 50 of best cancer hospitals in the country by U.S. News and World Reports. So just a little bit, because it's very exciting times now at the Markey Cancer Center. As I said, we initially achieved our NCI designation in 2013. Every 5 years, we have to renew our application. So we did this in 2018. And with this renewal that we just submitted in October, we are applying for comprehensive status, which is the highest echelon for NCI designated cancer centers. So we have our site visit that will be in February with a number of NCI experts and specialists who will be visiting us at that time. What has NCI designation meant to us? Well, first of all, it's really been, I think, impactful in terms of the number of patients that we've been able to see. We have a number of affiliate sites throughout Kentucky. We now have 19 affiliate sites that really span from far eastern Kentucky all the way to western Kentucky. And either at the Markey Cancer Center or indirectly through one of these 19 affiliate sites, we care for about 40 to 50% of all new cancer cases in Kentucky. We see patients from all 120 counties, and we also have clinical trial accruals from 98 of the 120 counties. So what does comprehensive cancer center status means? When I talk about this, I say it's taken us to the next level. It means that we'll achieve more funding through the NCI, which really equates to more research, more cancer screening, more prevention, more clinical trials, increased draw patients, more cutting-edge early-phase clinical trials with the latest cancer treatments, more private donations, et cetera. So it really is sort of taking it to that next step, so to speak. I'll briefly talk a little bit about some of the things going on at the Markey Cancer Center, and again, very much appreciate the support provided by the Tobacco Settlement Funds, which has really helped jumpstart a number of projects that are now sustained through more federal funding as well as funding from industry sites, et cetera. So I just want to talk first about our lung cancer screening project. So some of this work was started with Tobacco Settlement Funds, and I have to say I'm really proud of this program. This is led by Dr. Tim Mullett, and basically this is screening those Kentuckians who are at most risk for lung cancer. This program has been a statewide program, but it's achieved success beyond my wildest expectations. In fact, Kentucky is now number 2 in the country for lung cancer screening. We're just behind Massachusetts, and just think about that. We lead all of the southern states in lung cancer screenings by a long shot. And what that has meant is that we have seen a decrease in our late-stage lung cancer rate in Kentucky over the last several years. It's about a 19% drop. It's 2 times faster decrease in Kentucky compared to the U.S. as a whole, and even 3 times faster in Appalachian Kentucky compared to the U.S. In addition, we've through your help have had a number of policy changes which have further helped us. Just most recently, I was here for the signing in July of the Kentucky Lung Cancer Screening Program that was created by you all and the governor. I also want to just say that colorectal cancer, we're also have very high rates of that in the state. And back in 2000, we actually ranked 49th in the country in colorectal cancer screening through a lot of efforts on a lot of people's parts, and including Dr. Tucker as well as colleagues at the University of Louisville Brown Cancer Center. We're now up to number 17 in the country in colorectal cancer screening, which is a pretty dramatic increase over the last 10 to 15 years. We also have a Cancer Moonshot initiative that has put in a significant amount of funds to help us with some counties in eastern Kentucky that still have very high cancer rates. And I have to say, all of this has been quite significant because what we've seen is a 30% decrease in our incidence of colorectal cancer, as well as a 34% decrease in mortality. In fact, Kentucky is no longer number 1 in colorectal cancer incidence. So we have a number of programs in cervical cancer prevention. Again, we're high in this particular cancer, and a lot of this is due to human papillomavirus or HPV. So there's been a significant amount of work with screening for cervical cancer, as well as increasing vaccinations for HPV. I have to say as well that with the opioid epidemic, we've seen surging rates of hepatitis C virus in the state, particularly in our rural Appalachian population. And hepatitis C virus can down the road cause liver cancer. So we're seeing increased rates of liver cancer in the state that I think probably secondary to our increased rates of hepatitis C. But through a really unique program, Jennifer Havens at the Markey Cancer Center is working with folks around the state. There's a project now to provide free medication through a collaboration with the NCI as well as the other NIH institutes and Gilead Sciences that's providing about $50 million worth of free medication to treat Perry County. That's one of the highest counties in Kentucky for HCV infections. And what Dr. Havens has noted that with the almost 400 patients that have been treated thus far, she has seen a 93% sustained virologic response, which means that 93% of these patients are cured of their HCV. So again, we see this as a really wonderful project. It's helping folks, and it's one of the first trials of its kind that is utilizing funds from NCI and other NIH institutes as well as Gilead Sciences to really provide that medication. Another thing that we've been working on, the citizens of Martin County in eastern Kentucky were quite concerned about their water supply. They had a major spill of about 300 million gallons of coal slurry into their water supply. And so with our help and also help from NIH sources and grants, Dr. Unrein and Hoover worked with citizens in Martin County and also Letcher County to test their water supply, and also work with the engineers in those two counties to actually clean up the water supply. This is another example. Again, I'll try to be brief, but I'm just so proud of this example as well. So the education attainment in Appalachian Kentucky is much, much lower than it is in the rest of the U.S., with most of the population achieving a high school education attainment at best, but not many going on to college, or at least a lower percentage than the U.S. But we have a program that's called Action. It's to train Appalachian students in cancer. They're trained, they're mentored, they understand cancer professions. And this is really geared toward Appalachian students, undergraduate and high school students. And of the 56 undergraduate students from Appalachia that have gone through this program, we now have 25 that have been accepted to medical school or going to medical school, 3 that are in pharmacy school, 1 that's in graduate school, 3 in master's programs. So just, again, something that has achieved excellence beyond my wildest expectations. These students have now published 2 books, actually. They're essays of basically their experiences with family, friends with cancer, and just a moving portrayal of their lives, and what they face with cancer in their community. So again, I'm really proud of this, because what I'm hoping is that some of these kids who are going to medical school now will come back to Kentucky, particularly in eastern Kentucky, to practice. And with that knowledge of cancer and what's going on in their community, will be outstanding physicians for their communities. So support from the state has really provided critical funding for our cancer screenings throughout the state. We've been able to use some of the funding for new recruitment and for retention of some of our cancer investigators. We've used it as seed funding for new cancer research projects, which have then led to additional funding either through the NIH or state sources or the American Cancer Society. We also utilize this for funding new clinical trials. So just a plea that we need your continued support. Again, I greatly appreciate it. We could not do our job without your support. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and wish you all happy holidays.
Thank you, Dr. Chesty, and we will now hand this over to, Dr. Evers. I apologize right there.
I was flattered.
No, you
We'll
weren't.
now hand this over to Dr. Chesney, if he's available there.
So, can you hear me?
We've got you.
Fantastic. And I apologize that I'm not there. It's only a 50-minute drive, and I was only given a Zoom invite, so that's why I'm not. And I've enjoyed sitting next to Dr. Evers and hearing his talk over the years. And I have to say, something that I'm proud about is the fact that he and I have worked together to have a joint meeting every 2 months between the University of Kentucky Markey Cancer Center and the Brown Cancer Center at the University of Louisville, where we go through the clinical trials that we have at each of the institutions and educate the medical oncologists and the surgical oncologists and radiation oncologists about the availability of clinical trials. And none of that would happen without the support that we get from the Tobacco Master Settlement Funds. I am going to attempt to share my screen, and I'll ask if someone can let me know if I have shared my screen.
Yes, we have it.
Fantastic. So, the $3.5 million a year that we get at the Brown Cancer Center and at Marquis really does translate into lives saved in Kentucky, and not just in Kentucky, but the surrounding states as well.
Dr. Chesney, would you mind maximizing the size of your screen to see if we can get that a little larger, please?
I sure wouldn't if I can figure it out. Hold on. Let's see. says, did that help?
That's better.
How about now?
No.
That's worse?
Yes.
Let's go back. One more.
Back one more.
Let's go. We've got our printout right here. It's.
I'm sorry.
That's no problem. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, this group has seen this slide before, but I want to reiterate an important fact, which is that cancer is not going away. In fact, the epidemiologists have stated that we will see about a 50% increase in individuals suffering from cancer by 2040. We believe it's going to be much higher than that, mostly because of the new treatments we have that are translating into long lifespans for patients, particularly the immunotherapies. And the good news, even though cancer incidence is up and expected to be up, and number of people suffering from cancer is going to be up, the good news is that mortality is dropping significantly. And Dr. Evers mentioned the reduction in stage 4 lung adenocarcinoma that we're experiencing right now. That's due to immunotherapies and their effectiveness. And you can see on this slide, I hope, that the male and female mortality rates are dropping significantly now. And what we're going to see over the next 5 years is a dramatic drop as a result of these new therapies. And what are we doing about it at Brown Cancer Center? Well, we like at the Marquee have subspecialty oncologists. So we have doctors who focus on breast cancer and doctors who just focus on lung cancer, et cetera. And then we have clinical trials and cancer education programs that you'll hear about, and outreach programs going out into the community through the Kentucky Cancer Program. And then, of course, translational cancer research, which a large part of the funding we get from the state through the Tobacco Master Settlement program goes towards our basic research programs to try to end cancer once and for all. One of the most important things that our patients experience here is the access to multidisciplinary cancer clinics. These are cancer clinics that are, that emphasize one type of cancer, have radiation oncologists, surgical oncologists, medical oncologists who focus on that type of cancer and work together towards the common goal of making sure their patients live into their 90s instead of dying early of cancer. And the impact of having a 50-year-old, very successful individual, very productive individual raising a family, pass from cancer cannot be overstated. Many think of us as the Louisville Cancer Center, but we're not the Louisville Cancer Center. We have patients who actually come from every county in Kentucky to Louisville to get treated. And so the last time I gave this talk, I showed the actual numbers, and I will admit that several of the counties just have 1 or 2 patients that are distant. Pike County actually had 6 last year. But you can see on this slide that in Jefferson County, we had 6,500 newly diagnosed cancer patients. You can basically multiply that times 10 for the number of patients under our care. If you look at all the other counties in Kentucky, it was just over 5,000. So about 50,000 who are treated here for cancer. And the funding that we get makes the cancer registry, the nurse navigators, the social workers, the financial counselors, all those folks who are involved in trying to make sure that patients get the best care, have access to the best clinical trials, get it no matter where they live in Kentucky. And I need to mention 3 names. It centers me personally. I think it'll center everyone who's listening to me right now. This is Owen McMasters, who was 11 when he had a sore throat, and it was pretty bad. And his dad, Kelly, brought him to the hospital with it. And his white count turned out to be quite high. And it turned out he had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Kelly McMasters is the chair of surgery here. Dr. Evers knows him well. Owen underwent an allo bone marrow transplant and did well for about 4 years, but then recurred and passed away when he was only 16 years old. And he's why I come to work every day. we cannot accept having children die of cancer in the United States anymore. This is Steve Tompkins. Steve had melanoma when he was 52. Steve graduated from Trinity, which is a local Catholic high school here, and went on to play baseball at the U of L. And then he coached, and he really, that was his claim to fame, coaching at Trinity, and was loved by the community, and went on multiple clinical trials over 10 years, and ultimately passed from his melanoma not too long ago after receiving several of our cellular therapies. And then this is Laura McGregor. Laura was diagnosed in 2007. The point of including her is to just state the fact that cancer affects the whole lifespan. And Laura was only 30, and she was pregnant with her second son, and she decided she was not going to let cancer stop her in her life. And so she founded Hope Scarves, which is now a national foundation based here out of Louisville, and what Hope Scarves does is it passes scarves to cancer patients, mostly female cancer patients, with the stories of the individual who held the scarf before it was passed on. And Laura, unfortunately, who was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma in January of 14, passed away this January. So your funding is helping us end what we are seeing in these young and middle-aged adults in Kentucky. One of the key initiatives that has been supported by your funding has been the cellular immunotherapy program. You've heard about this program before, the Tumor Infiltrating Lymphocyte Program, or TILS for short. We have now become the top TIL center in the country. MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas is sending us patients. The National Cancer Institute in Bethesda is sending us patients. The University of Michigan is sending us patients, and so on and so on. And it's because of the funding that we're getting that's supporting the great research that's happening at the University of Louisville. The therapy is pretty complicated. It involves a surgeon like Dr. Evers taking out a tumor, and then cellular immunologists in the lab isolating the immune cells from the tumor and expanding them literally a billionfold. And then we reinfuse those cells into the patient after we deplete their own immune system, and then follow it with a growth factor. So it involves 3 to 4 weeks in a bone marrow transplant unit. We're now testing it in melanoma, lung, head and neck, cervical cancer. We're hoping for FDA approval soon for the melanoma patients. And this is just a dramatic example, in my opinion. We just published this, I think, a week or two ago. Each one of these little bars or columns on this waterfall plot are an individual patient's tumor mass. And anything that goes up is the tumor grew in that individual. Anything that goes down, the tumor shrunk. And you can see that the vast majority of patients had their tumor shrink. And what's dramatic about this is that all FDA approved options had been exhausted in these patients. So this was a treatment that turned out to be very effective and very durable. And we thus have patients coming from across Kentucky and the country to receive it. And the durability is shown here in what's called a swimmer's plot, with the ongoing patients having response with the little triangles at the end of the column. And I have an example of a patient. I wish it was from Kentucky, but she agreed to have her name splattered all over the internet, so we included her. Her name's Val Snap. Val was in her early 70s. I think she was 73 specifically. And she was told by MD Anderson that she was too old to receive this therapy. And she called up here, and I talked with her, and she passed all of the screening tests, including the cardiac and pulmonary tests that we do. And after receiving the treatment, she had a complete response, and she's out, I think, 2 to 3 years now, living a normal lifespan, which is what we're all about. And a famous quote that Val gave to one of our university magazines was, "I look out over the farm, and it's so beautiful. I think how blessed I am to be able to be here to see this, and how many people have been told they wouldn't be here for long and have not had the chance I have had." And Val is alive and well. I love this picture because every time I do a telehealth with her, because she lives in Nashville now, that dog gets in front of her face and I can't see her. But she's alive and well, like so many other of our patients. And none of this would happen. These are clinical trials. if it weren't for the funding that we get from the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement. This is another patient who agreed to have her name released, Jan Phillips, and she had cervical cancer, which is terminal. There's no FDA approved options once it's stage 4. She received the cell therapy here in Louisville from Knoxville, Tennessee. And then this lady is from the south end of Louisville, Adrian Baker, and she had lung cancer. It progressed after she received all the FDA approved options, and she's now, I think, about a year and a half out with no evidence of disease. So the funding that we get from the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement is literally saving lives. We would not be able to be doing these cell therapy programs here if it weren't for that funding. And this is just a slide. It's a little bit outdated, but it shows where all the patients are coming from. Just demonstrating that they're coming from basically the eastern half of the state of the country. Obviously, in Kentucky, we're seeing the majority of the patients. I didn't include that on this slide. But this funding isn't just for cancer research, it's for cancer screenings. And Dr. Evers went through in some detail the success that Kentucky has experienced as a result of the initiative with colonoscopies. We believe that another key area of concern is lung cancer. We're the #1 state because of tobacco smoking. We have an abysmal rate of lung cancer screening like the rest of the country. It's less than 10% of eligible smokers. And that compares to mammography and colonoscopy, which is 60 to 70% of those eligible. So we've worked pretty hard to improve lung cancer screening, just like UK and Marquis has. We did see a significant drop, unfortunately, during the pandemic, as this slide shows in 20 and 21. But I'm pretty proud that this was year to date. So this isn't the actual number, 1646, but year to date, about a week ago, we had beat our 2019 numbers. And this screening involves a 5-second low dose chest CT, no IV contrast. The patient gets in. The hardest part about getting this screening is making it to the imaging center to get it done. But I can't tell you how many patients we've detected with early stage lung cancer that can be cured with a surgeon's scalpel alone, which will translate into further reductions in the lung cancer death rate in Kentucky that Dr. Evers already brought up. We also do basic research here that I haven't brought up yet, and I'm very proud of this scientist. His name's Jun Yan. He was trained here. He did his postdoc here. He went to Yale University for his first faculty job, and then came back here for his next one. And now he's the director of our cancer immunology program, and he's the chief of the division of immunotherapy in the Department of Surgery. He has 4 $2 million+ R01s. He routinely publishes cutting edge research in the top journals, including this one. This is Nature Immunology, one of the top journals currently related to cancer immunology. And the pictures you see are pictures of mouse lungs. At the top under PBS, it says, that's the placebo, and you can see all the black. That's melanoma that has spread from a primary melanoma. And then he has a new treatment that based on an old idea called beta-glucan that has essentially prevented most of that spread, that he's moving into a clinical trial with our clinical trialists. And he wanted me to show you all this new technology that can really focus in on individual immune cells, which really does translate into us being able to figure out exactly how the immune system sees cancer cells and try to egg the immune system on so that it can actually take care of cancer in all patients. Dr. Evers brought up education and how important that was to him. Likewise, it is for me. We are all getting older. And if Kentucky doesn't train the next generation of cancer doctors and researchers, then there's going to be a problem pretty soon. And so we use a portion of the funding related to cancer research to support the training of graduate students and postdoctoral fellows who focus on cancer research, as well as medical oncologists, surgical oncologists, and radiation oncologists, as does Marquis. And I put together this pie chart for you to see my research budget for the Brown Cancer Center. And the big piece is extramurally funded, peer-reviewed grants. So it's sponsored research, essentially, that most of which comes from the NIH, but a lot comes from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, the American Cancer Society, other foundations. And you can see that that's the majority of our funding, but we would not be able to bring $66 million in research funding into the state of Kentucky if it weren't for the key other sources of revenue that are listed here. And the 2 million is donations. They're low right now. I won't sugarcoat that. We're on the low end of donations for philanthropy right now. U of L Health and the School of Medicine supports us with $5 million in healthcare revenue. Big Pharma supports us with just over $1 million. But the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement with the $3.4 million, that money translates into infrastructure that enables us to do the research that will ultimately lead to cures in cancer and leads to extramural funding from federal grants as well as foundations. And that's a key point. And so this is my last slide. Your funding, we would not be successful without this funding. We would be more successful if we got more funding, to tell the truth. But this funding translates into us being able to reduce the cancer death rate through our multidisciplinary cancer subspecialty programs, through innovative laboratory research in our clinical trials, through cancer screening, and then, of course, educating the next generation of cancer doctors and researchers in Kentucky. So I thank you for your attention. I'll take any questions.
Do we have any questions from the members?
I have a question.
Yes, Representative Roberts.
Thank you so much for all of this. There was one chart pretty early on.
Would you mind checking your mic, please?
Sorry, I'm out of practice on committees here for a second. The holidays. Thank you for your presentation. There was one chart early on the cancer death rates and them dropping, which is all really, really encouraging. But when I look at this, the female incidence rates are still, they're ticking up overall over time. And I'm wondering if you can give us any insight into why you think the female rates may be ticking up when the overall and the male incidents are ticking down.
So personally, we don't know for sure, but personally, I believe it's a combination of better early detection. Women tend to do a better job with their health than men, so we're detecting cancer earlier in them. And number two, the aging population. There's no question. A common question that I receive is, okay, the cancer death rate. So that we usually express those numbers in a percentage of the population, right? So it's the number of deaths per 100,000. But as the population ages, the number one risk factor for cancer is age. So as we see the bubble from the baby boomer population, we are seeing currently a bubble from in cancer patients. So I think it's a combination of those two issues. Dr. Evers, do you think there? I've heard something about smoking rates going up a little bit later than men, and that causing a little bit of a delay in some of this. But what I understand is that it's mostly breast cancer and other female cancers that is driving it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Cheney, we miss you being here, making the presentation in person. We appreciate you, though, doing it there online. Dr. Evers, we appreciate it. All of the members here, I think you know that we lost our co-chair just a short period of time, and you've got our strong support of what you do right there.
Thank you, sir.
So, once again, I want to thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Now, next, we'll have the reports from our Ag Development Board, and we'll ask Brian Lacefield, who's Executive Director of the Kentucky Office of Ag Policy, and Bill McCloskey, the Deputy Executive Director, if they'll please come up, introduce themselves, and do your presentation, please.
Well, good afternoon, Chairman, committee members. Good to say afternoon. Been in the habit of visiting with you all in the morning, but it's great to be back for our final meeting of the calendar year. Been an extra week in between since last normally we're here. I was looking back over the calendar at what's been happening at the Office of Ag Policy, and after our meeting on the 10th, we had our second of the stakeholder meetings that the commissioner has put together with stakeholders involving the large and food animal veterinarians and the shortage that we see across the state, especially in our rural and underserved communities. And had this meeting in conjunction with the North American Livestock Show over in Louisville, and we had between 50 and 60 folks there at that meeting. Again, continuing to address the issues and looking at what can be done about this. I was able to speak and outline the new program that we have launched at the Office of Ag Policy, with a grant program in addition to our pre-existing program for low-interest subordinate loans for any practices that are wanting to establish a large animal practice, buy into an existing practice, or buy any equipment that is specific to large and food animal veterinary medicine. From this, these two meetings, we're establishing a working group of vested stakeholders that will continue to look for other ways that we can continue to address this. We'll add as an aside that Bill and I did have first conversation with a practicing veterinarian for both same practice, looking at one adding in a new practicing veterinarian, becoming a partner, and then expanding their operation. So hopefully that will translate into an application, and then can present that to you after it is approved and funded. We had the following week was our joint Ag Finance and Ag Development Board meeting. I spoke about the agenda of that last time I was visiting with you, so I will spare you a recap of every stop we made. But it was it was a 2-day event, and the first day was spent visiting numerous projects that were funded by both Ag Development dollars and with Ag Finance, and had our joint meeting the following day on Friday there in one of our farmers markets that was funded with state and county funds there in downtown Somerset. Bill and I had a chance to go and impact a future generation of ag leaders as we spoke to the University of Kentucky's ag marketing class, and that group of students got more ag policy than they probably were expecting that day. But we had a great chance doing that, and that class was for Dr. Will Snell, who we all often get to come and speak to our committee meetings, and it was a great experience, and every time I do that, I get excited about the future. We had several that actually had participated, or their families had, into some of our county level programs with the CAPE and the YAPE program. The Farm Bureau annual meeting was the last few days of November, first few days of December, back in Louisville. We were back, Chairman, back to what it looked like prior to pandemic. There were over 2,000 registered for this event, and was a great chance to see folks from literally across the state all at one place. And one highlight that I've always enjoy at that meeting is the UK Ag Econ Outlook, where the ag economists are giving both a look back at the previous year and a look ahead at what's projections for the upcoming year. And I think a real highlight, and one I wanted to share with this committee, was Dr. Snell and his outlook has projected the 2022 ag receipts for Kentucky will exceed $8 billion. This will be the first time we've crossed that threshold. And Senator Webb, you go back into the days where we were established, we were at ag receipts of $3.5 billion, and we were looking towards, can we get to that $5 billion in ag receipts? At that time, tobacco was accounting for 25% of those ag receipts. Tobacco is now less than 3% of these ag receipts. So for I think that's a great time to pause and recognize the work and the commitment that the General Assembly has done, and specifically this Oversight Committee on guiding this throughout every administration on the use of these funds for Kentucky farmers, and seeing the mission accomplished, that we have diversified Kentucky agriculture and we have grown our ag receipts. And as we close out this calendar year, I'm just kind of reflective and very thankful of everything that has gone on. Senator Parrott, it was great to be able to recognize you for your service today. I think back to the first time you and I met was when you joined several of your colleagues that were all the representatives and senators from agriculture, and you spoke. I think it was about 12 years ago. You were in session, and I was part of the Kentucky Ag Leadership class. A class that is funded by these funds, and was going through that, and we were able to sit and visit and talk about these funds and other things moving through the General Assembly at the time. And I credit my experience in that program. I would not have had the opportunity to serve in the last position with the Farm Service Agency, or for sure this position here, and think about all the other interactions we had through the Ag Business Association of Kentucky and other groups and what you've done. So I thank you for your service to Kentucky, specifically to agriculture and to these funds. So best of wishes in your next endeavor. I'm also very thankful for my colleagues I've got at the Kentucky Office of Ag Policy. We have got a tremendous team, all fully staffed right now, and hoping we can roll through 2023 the same way. But thankful for what they're able to do to help get these funds and delivered. Our partners with UK, Kentucky State Extension, our different administrating entities that we partner with in the county funds. But specifically want to thank the General Assembly for 22 years of directing these funds for the work they've done. Seeing the presentation before was very inspiring to see the work coming on from the medical community, and then to see what is able to be accomplished in our agriculture community as well. It is inspiring, and so I thank you, your colleagues, for the continued support of these funds throughout. Thankful, it's really, as I've been able to be working in this now for 2 years directly, it's very impressive to see that we've been able to continue this work for as long as we've had. Now, talking about things in a calendar year ending, well, we all have our fiscal years. We know how we operate, and delivered to you and all of your colleagues this week should have been a copy of our annual summary that came out, and this is the second one now that we've done in conjunction with the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. Now that we're part of that organization, and give a tremendous shout out to the comms team at the KDA for their work putting this together. But I'm very excited about what we were able to showcase in all of our different county and statewide projects that we're doing from the grant side, as well as a recap of all of our loans that we've done. And if anybody has theirs with you, or if not, look, when you get back to your office, you've got to go to page 10. I think this has the best Easter egg in it. As chairman, this is in your county here, poultry producer up in northern Christian County, and he is holding a copy in his hand of last year's annual summary, as he is photographed for his picture in this year's annual summary. I know that I was standing there. Bill handed him a picture, or handed him one of his annual summaries, and we were able to get his picture for an energy project. But we have got the staff already listing out projects that they have worked on this past year that we want to see highlighted in the future year. And I would be remiss if I didn't compliment both of our interns that we had this summer, that I brought to a couple of the oversight committees, because they did a lion's share of the writing on this, as well as Jesslyn Watson, our communication director that we have at the Office of Ag Policy. The last thing I want to mention is a recap of our loans that we had. As I continue to share with you, each time I come, we're seeing a increase in activity with Kentucky Ag Finance. As you all are aware, our loans have a fixed interest rate, and we don't have to worry what the 10-year Treasury is doing. Our rates since inception have been loaned out at 2%, and we allow all of our participating lenders to add 75 basis points, or 0.75% on top for servicing fee. So the fixed rate to all of our borrowers that are utilizing this program is 2.75. Largely below the market rate, and significantly so as rates continue to move, and we're seeing a lot of our other long-term rates on the other part of the loans in the 8s to 9%. So we're seeing what had been about $1 million in new obligations each month approved. We're up over $2 million. And this past month for the November loans, we had one under our infrastructure program, one under ag processing, and the others were beginning farmer programs representing beef, grain, and poultry. 2.2 million of ag finance, but we're able to leverage that for nearly $8 million in total capital investment that we saw. And I'll give you a little spoiler for next month. We had another $2 million that was approved, but this time we're a smaller percentage of the overall, was close to $16 million. So the use of these funds are really there to keep the capital moving, to get our partnering lenders, whether they're our community banks or our ag credits, or you see in this case Metco from Jefferson County there, one of our government lending institutions, are able to leverage our funds, taking that subordinate position, the lower interest rate, and then getting their funds out. And I think you'll see continue increase in for sure the next year, and we're forecasting that with our cash needs inside. And I will pause there, let Bill go through the projects that were funded, and then we'll be happy to take any questions you have.
All right, I'll move on to page 2 to give you an update on Ag Development Board approvals of projects and programs designed to help our farmers in Kentucky transition away from tobacco into other enterprises. So if you look on page 2, you can see there was 4 applications approved for the CAPE program, County Agriculture Investment Program, 1 under Next Generation Farmer, 2 applications under shared use equipment, and they're going to utilize those county funds to purchase a no-till drill and post driver, Senator Parrott. And then we've got 5 applications under the Youth Agriculture Incentives Program. And again, these programs are designed to improve efficiency on the farm, diversify into new enterprises, or just expand the operation, all again with the goal of transitioning from tobacco to other enterprises. Moving on to our projects, we'll start on page 3 of the Kentucky Horticulture Council, staying with the theme of, again, investing in programs that helps our farmers in Kentucky transition into other enterprises. The horticulture industry probably represents the most significant opportunities going forward. And the Kentucky Horticulture Council was approved for $1,848,395. This is 2 years of funding, working with our land-grant universities, University of Kentucky and Kentucky State University. And they also, in this budget, Senator Parrott, they have some funding available, earmarked to work and do some different field trials at Berea, Eastern Kentucky University, Moorhead, Murray, as well as Western Kentucky University. So obviously, Representative Roberts, this is a significant amount of money. We do have oversight over these type of projects, including Beef Network, Department of Agriculture, and Kentucky Dairy Development Council, in that we have a committee we call a Recipient Review Committee that reviews a 4-month report that these entities like horticulture are required to submit. So every 4 months they submit a progress report, and board members review and then give an update to the board. So it's an ongoing review of these programs. Next, moving on to page 4, Hampton Premier Meats. Representative Dawson, I know you're familiar with this meat processing entity in Hopkinsville. They were been in existence over 40 years under new leadership. But as you recall, we have updated you on investments of the Ag Development Board in meat processors across the state. We've identified 40 of the 80 meat processors. They were able to provide funding to help them expand their harvest capacity. And we've reported to you over $7 million in ag development funds has been invested in these processors. And if we include the loan program on the Kentucky Ag Finance Corporation, another $2 million, so we're probably talking about $9 million invested in a meat processor. Subsequent to the funding, the board approved the Food Safety Efficiency Incentives Program, where processors, again, realizing there need to be some technical assistance with these meat processors going forward, startups and existings. So again, they developed a program where they're going to encourage and provide incentives to our meat processors to work with consultants, where they can receive up to 75% of a $5,000 investment in a consultant. So you can see that in this case, they were approved for $3,750, which is the maximum, to work with a consultant to work on GFSI, Global Food Safety Initiative. A lot of the wholesalers and the institutions that buy meat products require this GFSI audit to be part of the process to be able to sell meat to the wholesalers and distributors.
Bill, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The Hampton Premier Meats.
Mike, please.
I'm sorry. I'm always bad about it. Yeah. The Hampton Premier Meats, is that Matt Hampton?
No,
It's not.
that the previous owners, Representative Dossett as well, and so was Brian,
Okay.
was Ernie Hampton, and he sold it to the principal or manager is Chris Milam,
Okay.
who used to be the extension agent for Logan County, and then he works with a group of investors that operate a metal sheet business there in Russellville, and they've helped him
Okay.
fund that project.
Okay, thank you.
And his sons are working in the business too.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to page 5, we'll talk a little bit about the Kentucky State Beekeepers Association. So you can see they're approved for $106,000 to help promote, market, and education of beekeeping industry or business and honey products. Now, one of their initiatives is to identify and certify honey produced in Kentucky as Kentucky honey. Now they realize that there is honey that comes from out of state and then is marketed as Kentucky honey. So what the Kentucky State Beekeepers Association has launched this initiative with funding from the Ag Development Funds to test honey from Kentucky honey producers and market it under a certified honey label. So this is an example, if you can see in this brochure, certified Kentucky honey producers. So if a Kentucky honey producer will go through the protocol of being certified as honey produced in Kentucky, they work with some scientists over at the Bluegrass Community Technical College. They have been funded with Ag Development Funds to purchase the equipment so these scientists can test honey and assure that it has been produced in Kentucky. And if the Kentucky bee producers will go through this process, then they will be awarded this label here to assure to you as consumers or all of us consumers that the honey they're purchasing is produced in Kentucky. Any questions on that? All right, next we're on page 6. The Kentucky Department of Agriculture was approved for $2,876,000 to continue to market Kentucky Proud label. So if you look at the 5 different areas that they're planning to fund, point of purchase. So that's using funds promote promotional expenses for advertising, marketing, and reaching consumers. At the point of purchase, there is an annual limit of $8,000 and a $36,000 lifetime limit, and this is the category where our farmers that are developing direct-to-consumer marketing programs can access money to help them with their marketing programs targeted to consumers. Under branding and advertising, this funding, which is the biggest part of the funding, is just to continue to market and promote Kentucky Proud label. Buy local, this category is funded to target food service providers that seek Kentucky Proud food products for their menus. That's a way to pay for the cost of doing that. Retail is just $30,000 a year. So this is designed to work with distributors and retail, change their marketing to consumer, just help with their marketing program. And the last one is Farm to Fork, just provides funding organization to host family-style meals using fresh Kentucky farm food. And I know Senator Webb, she stepped out, but she's very familiar with the Greenup County Director Lacefield. I know you've been to that farm to table event. So again, just helping to promote Kentucky Proud products in Kentucky. Next, we're on page 7, the Marion County Public Schools. So we update you almost monthly about county funds being used or invested to support greenhouse production in the county. So I think we're over 70 greenhouses that have received funding at the grade school, middle school, and high school level. So helping our youth get exposed to horticulture production. And that wraps up our update on project and program funding for November 18th board meeting.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have any questions? Brian, Bill, looks like you got off easy right there. Thank you both very much. We greatly appreciate you being here and doing the presentation. To our members right here, just to let you know, we will not be meeting in January, so we will not see each other again together as a group until April, I believe is correct. Do want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to all of our members and to our staff, because we are very blessed with the staff that we have working here. So to Stephen, Hillary, and Kelly and Rachel, thank you all for what... I said Stephen. I didn't forget him. Stephen and I were on a conference call this morning while I was on the road coming from Hopkinsville to here. So you're all greatly appreciated. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your help. With that being said, once again, Bill, Brian, thank you for being here. And do I have a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Thank you.